Welcome to Dark Hearts and True Crimes, where we uncover the most haunting tales of love, loss, and lives stolen too soon. Every case we explore is more than just a headline. It's someone's story. And some stories are almost too heartbreaking to tell. This one is hard because it involves a young mother who was full of promise, and another woman who was so broken by her past, she did something unimaginable. This is the story of Lisa Montgomery and the life she took in a desperate attempt to rewrite her own. The town of Skidmore, Missouri, was the kind of place where people knew their neighbors, smiled in passing, and trusted in simple things like home, family, and the miracle of new life. And 23-year-old Bobbie Jo Stinnett had so much to look forward to. She was 8 months pregnant, expecting a baby girl she and her husband Zeb planned to name Victoria. They decorated the nursery, picked out tiny outfits, and shared their excitement with friends and family. Even the dog breeding community Bobbie Jo was part of online. She was happy, she was glowing, and she had no idea that someone was watching her, planning something horrific. Hundreds of miles away in Kansas, Lisa Montgomery was spiraling. Her life, from the very beginning, had been marked by violence and neglect. Lisa grew up in a home where innocence was stolen early and often. She was sexually abused for years by her stepfather, and when she tried to tell her mother, she was beaten into silence. The trauma was so deep, so damaging, that her mind eventually created its own form of escape. Lisa began to experience pseudocyesis, a rare mental condition where a woman believes she's pregnant, even when she's not. She'd had 4 children in her younger years, but after undergoing tubal ligation, she couldn't have more. That didn't stop her from claiming she was pregnant again. She told her husband, her kids, her friends. She bought baby clothes. She named the child. She even posted about her due date. To the outside world, Lisa Montgomery looked like an excited, expectant mother. But the baby didn't exist. And deep down, she knew it. That's when the fantasy started to turn dark. Lisa joined an online forum for rat terrier breeders, where she came across Bobbie Jo's posts. She read about her pregnancy, saw the due date, and made contact, pretending to be a woman named Darlene Fisher, interested in buying a puppy. The 2 women exchanged friendly emails, and Lisa scheduled a visit for December 16, 2004. Bobbie Jo thought she was meeting a potential buyer. She had no idea that the woman pulling up in her driveway had brought a knife and a plan. What happened next is nearly impossible to speak about, and even harder to understand. Lisa strangled Bobbie Jo until she was unconscious, then used a kitchen knife to cut open her abdomen and remove the baby. But Bobbie Jo wasn't dead yet. She woke up, she fought, but the injuries were too severe. Lisa fled the scene, cradling the newborn, a baby girl covered in blood, and drove back home as if nothing had happened. She called her husband, told him she'd gone into early labor, and proudly introduced the baby to her family as their new daughter. Back in Skidmore, Bobbie Jo's mother arrived just minutes after the murder and found her daughter lying on the floor, barely clinging to life. The horror of that moment is something no mother should ever experience. She called 911, panicked and heartbroken. "She's still breathing," she cried. But by the time help arrived, it was too late. Bobbie Jo Stinnett, a young woman full of dreams, was gone, and her baby was missing. An Amber Alert was issued immediately. The FBI, local police, and federal agencies worked around the clock, and within 24 hours, they had a lead. Members of the dog breeding community recalled the name Darlene Fisher and traced her IP address. The digital trail led to Lisa Montgomery's home in Melbourne, Kansas. When agents arrived, Lisa answered the door, holding the baby in her arms, wrapped in a blanket. She smiled. She said the baby was hers, but the truth was written on her face. She was arrested on the spot. The baby, incredibly, was alive and unharmed. She was returned to her grieving father, who had just lost the love of his life. Lisa's trial began in 2007. Her attorneys argued that she was deeply mentally ill, suffering from years of abuse and untreated trauma. They described her dissociation, her psychosis, her delusions. They claimed she truly believed the baby was hers, and that her mind had detached from reality. But the prosecution had a different story. They showed how Lisa had planned the murder, created a fake identity, researched cesarean procedures, packed a knife, targeted a specific woman, someone she could overpower, and stage a fake birth. To them, it was cold, calculated, and deliberate, and the jury agreed. Lisa Montgomery was found guilty of federal kidnapping resulting in death and sentenced to death in October 2007. But even after her conviction, the controversy didn't end. Over the next decade, mental health experts, advocates, and legal scholars called for the sentence to be overturned. They said Lisa's brain had been broken long before Bobbie Jo's murder, and that executing her would be a tragedy of its own. In January 2021, after years of appeals and delays, Lisa Montgomery became the first woman in the United States to be federally executed in nearly 70 years. She was pronounced dead at 1:31 a.m. Her final words were simply, "No, this story is difficult because no one walks away untouched." Bobbie Jo Stinnett lost her life and never got to hold the daughter she longed for. Zeb Stinnett lost his wife and was left to raise that child alone. A little girl entered the world in the most traumatic way imaginable. And Lisa Montgomery was both a monster and a victim, a woman who endured horrors as a child and created new ones as an adult. What do we do with stories like this? We tell them not to glorify the violence, but to remember the names of those who were lost, to understand the cracks that can shatter someone's soul, and to remind ourselves of the ripple effects that a single act of violence can leave behind. Thank you for watching this episode of Dark Hearts and True Crimes. If this story moved you, please take a moment to honor the life of Bobbie Jo Stinnett, a daughter, a wife, a soon-to-be mother, who deserved so much more. And remember, behind every true crime is a true heartbreak.